Hello there, welcome back to another review. So today we're going to be talking about 5 Shaolin Masters released back in 1974 and directed by Cheh. Now when you talk about classic Kung Fu movies, classic Shaw Brothers movies that have like quite a big cast, this is one of them movies. This has a huge ensemble cast and there's a whole heap of stars in this one. We have David Chang, Ti Lung, Alexander Fu Sheng, Kuan-chun, Fong Hak-on, Brian Beardy Lung Kai-yan, Wang Lun Wei. We even have Gordon Liu in this one, even though he's actually only in it for a very small role. But make no mistake, you have your stars in this one, so if you're a fan of any of the guys I've just mentioned, then you are in the right place with this one. We have Lu Ka Lung here serving as the film's fight choreographer, as he often did back in the day before he became an amazing director in his own right, here working with Chang as the film's fight arranger. And I think in 1974 alone, I think they worked on about 4 films together about the destruction of the Shaolin Temple, and this one here actually being the last of them sort of that they worked on with that sort of premise. And I think by this point the relationship between the two had become a bit strained. I think sort of Lu Ka Lung wanted to go off and, you know, obviously make films in his own right, which he did, but I think it had become a bit strained at this point. I think Chang was talking about moving to Taiwan. I think Lu Ka Lung didn't feel sort of Chang that he understood Kung Fu all that well, and naturally of course was probably getting the itch to make his own movies. Now this film is quite relentless from start to finish in terms of action and Kung Fu scenes. The film has it in spades. In fact, it really is one of them movies where the whole film is just a series of fight scenes. Okay, it is one of them movies where you're never ever too long from the next sort of encounter, next fight. So if any of you have a need for sort of, you know, a lot of action, this film is going to cater to that very well. Not only with like in terms of like fight scenes, it's one of them movies where it basically is a series of fight scenes, training sequences and chasing, like sort of interspersing like the occasional sort of line of dialogue. Like even the very opening of the film, it just starts like bam with Fu Sheng and Ti Lung on the run for the Manchus and beating them up. Even have a guy in this who uses like this blade attached to a rope, which always made the movie so memorable for me. So it's a usual plot with this one. It's quite a generic plot. If you've seen a number of Kung Fu movies, you've seen this sort of plot play out you know, numerous times before. The Manchus have burnt down the Shaolin Temple and our 5 masters were on the run and split up in order to find other Shaolin rebels. What gets me is even when our masters split up, after 10 minutes or so, the credits are still coming up in this movie. It's one of them movies that, you know, sometimes the Shaw Brothers, then classic movies, the credits sometimes would come up in a number of different ways. Like some directors would do it differently, and this is one of them film where you're about 10 minutes in, 11 minutes in, and the credits are still coming up. Now this may not be Chang-Chi's best movie, but it has 2 major things going for it. One is that the cast is absolutely awesome, and 2 is that the film has such an unparalleled kinetic energy to it that the action and pace of the movie doesn't ever really slow down, like it keeps going. Now, but what really does work in the film's favour is the cast. That is a main selling point of the film, makes no mistake about that. But the film never ever slows down. It never really ever just stops. It feels like there's a wonderful sense of energy to this movie. What also works in the film's favour is that the vast majority of the movie, almost all of it, is on location. You get none of your Shaw Brothers sets here. Oh no, you get vast landscapes and the whole film just looks fantastic. They don't rely on the usual tried and tested Shaw Brothers sets, which in a way always sort of made a Shaw Brothers movie, but this one here, all on location for the most part, and it looks absolutely incredible. So our masters learn there was a spy in the ranks, which isn't kept a mystery at all, and we are informed and told of this right away. You know, I mentioned Gordon Liu. I always forget he is in the movie. It's one of them movies before obviously he had his breakout role with 36 Chambers. He was in a couple of little films, well, like couple of little Shaw Brothers movies. I say little movies, quite big movies, but he was sort of very small parts, and this is one of them movies that you actually even forget. You watch it, you think, oh, Gordon Liu's in it, and then when you go and watch it again, you think you totally forgot that Gordon Liu was even in the movie. But as I say, you always seem to forget he's in this one. He gets about 4 minutes of screen time, but hey, at least he gets to fight Lu Ka-yang here. So our fighters are all about these hand signals they use to sort of communicate with their fellow patriots. We have Fu Sheng getting kidnapped, we have Kuan-chun thinking they can take on the Manchus, only for it to end in a bit of a massacre. David Chang going to some fighters in the hills, and the leader refusing to help him at first, so the odds are really stacked against them. And this is basically all the film consists of, these Manchu fighters to which Lu Ka-yung, Fong Hak-on and Wang Lun Wei are part of, and just trying to track down our 5 masters. It's a really simple premise, it's a really simple setup, but where it's done this well, where you've got Chang-Chi in the director's chair, where you've got Lu Ka Lung doing the fight choreography, it works, you know, it works. Where you, and especially let's say the cast as well, big wide range of cast here, and there's so many classic kung fu players in this one, you cannot fail to enjoy it. Now there is a bit of a snag with the film, is that what you will notice is where there are 5 Shaolin masters, but they've actually split up, okay? So what this means is only 2 to 3, sort of 1 or 2 can be on sort of the screen at the same time for the bulk of the movie. 2 or 3 have to take a back seat when the focus is sort of on the others. Like when David Chang goes to see Sheng, it's Ti-Lung and Kuan-chun have all but disappeared. So they, as I say, because they have split up, it's not like they're all in the movie equal footing throughout. It's not like you get Ti-Lung from start to finish. Like they do split up, so you get sort of different sort of where they are, what's going on in sort of their arc and their, you know, what their character's story is. So it's not like the 5 Shaolin masters are like together the whole film. So anyway, realising they are no match for their pursuers, our fighters return to the burnt down Shaolin temple to begin their training. Ti-Lung takes up bow staff, David Chang takes up this chain whip style weapon. Like David Chang with this chain whip, right, he uses it so well. I mean, David Chang's, he wasn't necessarily a fighter as such, a bit like Jimmy Wang Yu, he sort of faked it. Lu Yan is another one, Brian Beardy, he was another one. He wasn't a kung fu player, but he could copy the moves really well. But David Chang's often overlooked in terms of sort of his fighting skills, but in this one, if you watch him with this like chain whip, he's absolutely owning with this thing. He's absolutely owning with this, and it's incredible stuff. And the whole film is played super straightforward. Yeah, we get training and kung fu experts there, but there's no major twists and turns with this one. It's really as straightforward as a kung fu film you could ever hope for. It's not like there's going to be a real big twist at the end, or you think, oh my god, where did that come from, how did that happen? It is for the most part by the numbers, but it's one of them films that, because it is so familiar, but because it is done so well, and because Chang-Chi is directing his arse off quite well here, it really does work. Now the end fight is super long too, with our heroes taking on the Manchu fighters. Like, it's almost too much of a good thing here, as the fight action doesn't ever seem to stop. Worth sticking around though for Ti-Lung's brief but so awesome bow staff duel in the river, which is just shot and filmed incredibly well. And that's what I mean about this film, where it is on location. Some of the scenes, especially that end scene with Ti-Lung doing the bow staff work in the river, incredible stuff. It really does look amazing. And it's one of them movies as well where like the last 15 minutes there is like no dialogue whatsoever. Okay, there's like no dialogue whatsoever. It's just fighting, but that's not a bad thing, right? And in a way, like I've mentioned, where it is too much of a good thing, it's almost quite an exhausting movie, because like I say, when I talk about energy, this film is such a physical movie. By the end of it, you are a bit sort of, there's so much fighting that has happened in the movie. It's like, okay, that's enough now. You know, you think, oh my god, there's too much fighting. But because it is Lu Lung's choreography, and because you've got that cast there, it just works. The whole film just works. And because of the location, it just looks, like I say, it just absolutely looks incredible. But I say, when you have a great cast, fantastic scenery, a simple premise, plot and setup to follow, you can't fail but to have a great time with 5 Shaolin Masters. Fu Sheng in particular absolutely steals the show. I think Alexander Fu Sheng absolutely steals the show in this one. I mean, he always sort of did in any film he was in, but especially when you look at this film, how big the cast is Fu Sheng, and a real testament to him, because he really does come through in this one. And I think with his screen presence and charisma, I think in a way without him the film may not have been as memorable as it is. That's not to take anything away from anybody else in the movie, but Fu Sheng just adds that little extra bit of spark to the movie. He just has that extra little bit of magic to proceedings that just makes it so, so special. But I say, it just adds them little magic touches and light comedic moments. Top that off with some awesome chain whip techniques from David Chang, great fights with Ti-Lung and his bow staff, plus a great fight early on at a tea house. You got your classic Shaw Brothers villain in Wang Lun Wei, though maybe not Chang-Chi or like even Lu Lung's sort of finest effort. The film is just so jam-packed full of action. Like, I cannot understate, I cannot state that enough. There is so much action in this movie. If you're a kung fu fan, you're going to have a blast in this one. I say, and the stars as well, and it's definitely a kung fu movie you should check out. And I will just end the movie by saying, is that how they do it in the film? It's something like that, isn't it? If you have seen it, if you have seen the film, you know what I mean. But make sure to go and check out 5 Shaolin Masters. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you again soon.
Don't concentrate on the finger, or you will miss all that heavenly glory.